what I learned from my mum again. In case we haven't met yet, I'm Jess Exco, the sole founder of Life and Confidence. And in case you haven't watched my previous video, which is what I learned from my mother, I highly recommend it. It will open up your eyes to how you will see your own mother from a different perspective. And I thought things were really going well between her and I, until an interaction triggered me and tested me if I really wanted to continue this relationship with her. So what happened was, I was exhausted from hosting a series of events, and that day was the only day where I had time off, and that's where I caught up with my mum for lunch. And she told me a few times over the phone before we met in person that she wants to take me out for lunch in the city. And when I arrived, she decided to change the location. And then the next thing was, she told me to go order my own lunch and she will just sit somewhere else, reserving our table. And she then told me that she's not going to have lunch with me. So I got very upset that she didn't follow through with her word. And I felt like this was the same scenario playing over and over again in my upbringing, in my teenage years, and in my young adult life, where she promised things and never followed through. This created a lot of trust issues, especially with women in female friendships. And I was really worked up about it. I was swearing at her, and I just felt that she was manipulating me to fulfill her selfish needs, to connect in person. She also said to me that I had to go to Yamcha with some relatives who came from Malaysia. And I had no say in that at all. And that got me angry even more. That felt like that I was a puppet to her, a little girl that didn't have any opinion in what she has to say, and that I wasn't really being valued. I felt manipulated and conned. And a lot of anger came up for me. And I had to remove myself because it was so hard to stop swearing at her. And I told her that it wasn't nice to tell me lies. That if she had money problems, she should have told me over the phone before we even met up for lunch, so we can postpone it to a later date or just have a conversation over the phone. I would be more than happy with that, because when I arrived, I was exhausted. I could have used that time to recuperate and look after myself. So there was this great disappointment that I had towards her, and I walked away. And she said to me in the conversation that, "Oh, but I bought you groceries and I don't have money for lunch." And I said, that's not the point. The point was, you told me that you want to pay me for lunch. If you wanted to buy me groceries, that's a different issue. And if you wanted to pay for lunch, you shouldn't have bought me groceries. So I didn't see the point of catching up if she didn't want to eat lunch with me. Then why am I wasting my time? So after that, I really had to ground myself because there was so much anger. I just could not contain it. And I haven't felt this way for such a long time since our phone conversation in January, which is why I recommend you watch my previous video, What I Learned from My Mother. And this situation occurred in July. So when I gave myself permission to just be alone and to let my mum know that I'm not interested in communicating to her, I just allow myself to feel all of the feelings. The anger, the grief, and the shame of not feeling worthy, not feeling respected, and that I didn't have a say with my needs. And I really questioned, will my mum ever change? Because I'm willing to do a lot to make a conscious effort in rebuilding a functional and healthy relationship with her. And it's really hard to compare that where I've been practicing and engaging in self-development and spirituality for the past 10 years, whereas with herself, she hasn't sought out any form of help or therapy or support with her stuff, with abuse and trauma. So it took me 3 weeks to process it and reflect until I had a dream. And in this dream, it was so real, yet so surreal at the same time. There was 2 incidences that occurred in my dream that actually occurred in real life. And the first one was I was in a car with my mum and she was driving and we got into a car accident. She was out of control. That did happen to me twice. And I just saw how reckless and irresponsible she was as an observation. Then the dream moved into the second scenario where I saw my mum killing a lobster that was roped up and then cooked it. And I was in shock. And in real life, she cooked a live goose. And I just felt that was so wrong. It didn't feel right to see another being being tortured in that way. And at the end of the dream, I started to realize the reason why my mum is so dysfunctional in the way she presents herself, her behaviors, her choice in actions, her thoughts, is because of unresolved trauma. And when I saw it from that perspective, I was able to see her with love and compassion for her. This is why she is the way she is. And it's hard to change that. And so when I woke up from that dream, I felt the call to reach out to my mum. But before I did that, I also wanted to integrate that experience of healing, a memory and timeline from my subconscious mind, to integrate that with the real world. And that is expressing my boundaries and my needs as a daughter and as a woman. And so I reflected on what I wanted to say before I contacted my mum. And I was really proud of myself that I didn't contact her for 3 months, and to give myself time out to process things on my own. When I called her, she was so happy to hear from me. And she kept saying, sorry, sorry, sorry. And she said sorry way too many times in our interactions. And I just didn't buy into that anymore. So I said to her, Mum, I want to talk about what happened in July, that lunch. And I had to Google Translate it for her to understand where I was coming from, because it was really hard for me to communicate it in Chinglish. And I wanted her to really understand where I was coming from. And it's not about making her wrong, but for her to understand how her behaviors and actions have impacted me, and how I felt dishonored throughout the whole process. So she couldn't handle the silences, and she didn't let me finish what I had to say. She tried to cover it up by saying sorry or changing the conversation. And I had to be really firm with her for her to understand why I'm upset. And when I was strongly explaining and continuing the conversation of what happened, I said to her, you know, if you have money problems, just cancel the lunch or postpone it, because it's a waste of my time and energy to come all the way to the city when I could have done something else with my time. You need to please consider my schedule, because I am a human being, and this creates mistrust. It makes it really hard for me to move forward with you. And she started to understand in her way. It may not be in the way that I wanted her to understand, but she did her best to understand it in her way. And we had a great conversation afterwards, and just bonding and getting to know what's going on with each other's lives. And she says, oh, you know, your relatives are here for 3 months from Malaysia. You know, you should go to Yamcha. And I said, no, I'm busy for the next 2 months. Let me get back to you if I'm ready to go. And she says, when do you want to catch up? And I learnt from my experiences with her that I will not catch up with her when my schedule is busy and full. It does not bring out the best in me, and I am not honoring myself by doing that. So that was the gift that I learned from this experience, is my own self-worth. And I made it very clear to her that I won't be seeing her in the next 2 months. And it's really important to tune in with yourself. You know, what is honoring your needs so you can express your boundaries to dysfunctional family members. And if dysfunctional family members aren't able to accept that, then it's best to just leave that conversation at that and move on and focus on yourself. It's really important to give that person and yourself some time out before you re-engage, because if you're constantly engaging with that person and you're holding onto so much suffering and emotions that's weighing you down, you're dishonoring yourself and that person. So it's really important to have that time out to process your emotions, to let it go, to see it from a higher perspective and understand why they operate the way they do before reaching out to them. So if you feel that you really struggle in your family dynamics and how it has impacted your self-esteem, you might be interested in listening to my childhood trauma clearing audio. And you treat this like a clearing session from your early childhood development years, 0 to 8. And any strong timelines that has created traumatic experiences, whether it's your teenage years, your young adult life, or in your childhood. And this will help you to realign yourself to your inner child, to feel safe and secure in this world. So it helps you to be more aware of your triggers and to stabilize them. If you like to experience this alchemy, whether it's through an online experience or face-to-face, you can also click on the link below and join me live for my childhood trauma clearing circle. And you can find the details in the link below. You can also join me in person for my incredible workshop, Ancestral Trauma Alchemy, in Sydney, Australia. And if you feel called to start breaking away the generational lines and how it plays out in your life, this workshop is for you. So make sure you click on the link below. And if you feel you got something out of this video, please subscribe to my channel. Give this video a like, comment below any nuggets of gold or anything that you got from this, and share it with your loved ones who are in need of this right now. May my journey serves you.